initiated a climate change adaptation resiliency study. And we looked over what the projected increase in rainfall as well, and the increase in the impact of that to our riverine and coastal facilities. And so we went through a pretty rigorous process to identify which of our facilities were at risk because of that, and what assets within those facilities we would need to remediate in order to protect it from the rising river and coastal waters that we are anticipating. So there's funding in the CIP right now, I believe, to make those changes. The report, and we're working with our engineering and construction department to have those remediation measures implemented in the coming year or so.
And so I appreciate that. And just to, again, in this tangled web, just want to make sure that the work that you just referenced is part of the CIP and it's not part of this conversation.
Well, the debt service for our CIP is part of the spending affordability budget. So indirectly, it's not, but it would be separate. It's separate budgetarily, but yes, of course, it's all one budget.
That's right, and it is a tangled web, right? Overarching Mr. Lipchenko, I see you were about to chime in.
Yeah, well, a couple other elements related to this. They do have a long-standing energy conservation program that they've had in place for many years to basically retrofit their facilities. WSSC Water is a very high energy intensive entity. So there are a lot of cost-effective retrofits you can do, and they've been doing that for a decade now. So that's certainly part of this. And, we're looking at retrofits of buildings as a major element of, the county's climate action going forward. Also, their Piscataway bioenergy facility would generate a substantial amount of clean energy. So that helps their energy footprint, if you will. And they also do have a wind power purchase agreement that they've had in place for a number of years. So these are all elements that they've been discussed at the council in the context of what all the agencies are doing. And every agency has its own unique profile that it has to deal with. WSSC is very different from the schools, very different from, the college. But I think it's got a very good track record with regard to clean energy and energy conservation as well, which is a major element of the climate action process going forward.
Right. Did someone else want to weigh in? I'm sorry, Mr. Beach. No.
I would just say Keith is right. He's directly on point with that. All of those measures and for energy conservation are part of our 20-year greenhouse gas reduction program, which we update every year. And we recently created a new division within our General Services Department for sustainability. And they're sort of working throughout the commission to implement these measures as well. One thing I did want to mention is our general manager, Carla Reed, did have to leave the meeting. She had a previous commitment in Annapolis that she had to get to. So I apologize for that.
Sure. So I had commissioned Office of Legislative Oversight report on how our climate is changing and what we need to do to mitigate that, and we're going to be having a subsequent T&E session, in the coming weeks to talk about that and our infrastructure and mitigating climate change, particularly with WSSC, is an important component of that. So I won't dwell much more on it, but wanted to understand that again, that interplay with regard to this budget. And the bottom line for me, 9% I think was too high for our ratepayers, and the 7% clearly is moving in the right direction. And I still think that is high, but the conversation that we've had today helping illuminate to everybody that WSSC, unlike many other aspects of life, and especially government life, has not received the types of federal or even state support that others have used to stem, not only inflation, but other costs over the last 18 months. I still think 7% would be a shock to some residents and ratepayers. And so I'm open to figuring out how we soften that a little bit, but I certainly understand the rationale that you have for it, and also appreciate the comments and questions that the chair offered to get our state delegation in Annapolis to help ease the burden that was created by state legislation decades ago. So with that, I yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Just one clarification on the customer impact, Mr. Hucker, sorry. The packet does note the impact on the average residential customer at each of the rate at a rate increase level. So for every 1% rate increase, an average residential customer will see about an 80-cent impact on their bill. At 9%, that equates to about $7.22. 7% would be $5.63. The one caveat is that includes fixed fees going up. So the customers that are in the customer assistance program don't pay the fixed fees. So they would also not pay a fixed fee increase. So they would see a slightly lower increase than the average residential customer that's not in the assistance program. And that's on page 7 of the packet, if you want to look at that chart. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Glass. Those are really helpful comments. I mean, I want everybody from WSSC to understand, we know you're in a very difficult position, and I want you to appreciate we're in a very difficult position as well. I think all of us know that you have debt service, and just as the county does, that you have to pay whether you like it or not. We received a warning letter from a rating agency as well, and we retained our AAA bond rating. We know what that feels like, and we know you want to address that, and we want you to address that. And we know you have fixed costs, many of them going up outside of debt service, not to mention your infrastructure, but things like the utility increases that were mentioned. Well, let me just point out the obvious. We're in the middle of a historic recession still. Statistically the worst since the Great Depression. It has lasted longer than everybody predicted because the pandemic has gone longer with the variant, and the economy is still not reopened. I'm certainly hopeful that as the economy reopens, you're going to see you've been through the worst, and you are going to see a resurgence of collection from your commercial customers as people return to the office and that water use resumes to where it was before. But we are still in the county seeing lines for food relief, sometimes that are a mile long. At some of our churches on the weekend, we still have 6% unemployment, and countywide, twice as high as it was pre-recession. And we have, as you know, at least 2 different Montgomery counties. In parts of my district, the unemployment rate pre-COVID was 3 times the county average, and right now, would be 3 or 4 times the 6% in Long Branch or East County or places like that. I fear that with too high, I realize that one of the drivers of your costs increase is all the delinquent accounts. But I think, if we allow you to raise them too much, you're creating even more delinquent accounts because we have so many customers that are hanging on by a thread. And I want you to realize since you probably don't follow every council session like we do, we have in other policy areas passed a savings program for every county agency this year. We have passed and then extended a fair holiday for all our ride-on customers. Now we have data about who they are, and a huge percentage of them are making $30,000 or less a year. So we are offering free bus service to them. Those are the same ratepayers that are struggling to pay their WSSC bill. We also have capped rents at 1.6%, not just for newer buildings or for big management companies that maybe have cash reserves to absorb that, but even for small landlords with 1 unit or 2 units, even for retirees with 1 unit, even for landlords that are having a lot of trouble with the same kind of increased utility costs and aging infrastructure that you're dealing with. We've told all the landlords in the county, even lots of retirees on fixed incomes, they can't raise rents more than 1.6%. So in that context, free bus service, savings plan for county agencies, 1.6% for landlords. It's difficult for me, and we've heard from so many tenant groups, CASA, JUFJ, Renters Alliance, that we are still flirting with a tsunami of evictions, which we want to avoid. And obviously a 9% rate increase would only exacerbate the risk of that. So to me, in that context, it's hard to justify certainly the 9%. I believe it's hard to justify even the 6% because that's almost 4 times what we're allowing landlords to raise. And water utilities, unlike rents, affect everybody in the county, homeowners as well, low income homeowners as well, and commercial customers and small businesses. So to me, I'd be more comfortable with 5% or 6%. We're preliminary. We're at a preliminary stage in the process. We have unanswered questions. I'd like to know the answer to what Fairfax does and DC does to address its delinquent accounts and why they have so many fewer than WSSC. And I very much think this committee and the whole council should write to the delegation. We can call them in, but we certainly should write to the delegation and the governor, urging them to meet their responsibility and make sure every penny of federal aid passed through the state for water utilities is going where it's supposed to go, to WSSC and its sister agencies. That's the first place we ought to start. The state, as I've said many times, has the primary responsibility for schools, childcare, healthcare, mental health. And we have a culture, I think, where we go to Montgomery County taxpayers and ratepayers first. And this is a clear case when there's so much federal money being spent. We're only doing the right thing by our ratepayers to make sure it's ending up in the right place. I know we're on the same page on that. So I would need to hear from Mr. Reamer too, but I would be comfortable moving 5.5 or 6%. And then we can always revisit this as we get closer to the budget. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say I appreciate your questions. Yesterday at the full council, or was it 2 days ago, you asked an insightful line of questions about our county's, administration of the vaccination or testing program. And suddenly we learned that the tests were not being administered as we were told it would be. And so
2.5 months ago.
I appreciate your oversight, and this dialogue has been challenging but necessary. So thank you. So this is a guideline, is that right?
Right.
Does it, and can we get from WSSC, what changes they will make if we go with 6%? Can we request that from them? I will say, I agree with the thrust of your approach here. As you mentioned, I'm worried that they have not received all the pandemic aid, that the county has received. And I don't think we're prepared to provide, a cash offset for WSSC. So it's just hard to get blood from a stone. But, we actually set this rate in the spring. Is that right? This is the guide.
Right.
Just to clarify, the limits are intended to provide guidance to WSSC Water on its budget development. It doesn't in any way impair the two councils from doing whatever they want to do in May when you take final action. The councils could approve a higher rate increase, for instance, or a lower rate increase. What it does is it provides WSSC with their guidance.
Could we ask them to do a 6% budget and bring it to us alongside, and then we'll be able to see if 6% is creating too many problems, then we can consider 7%. I am not opposed to 7% if that's what we have to do. But I want to know that it's what we have to do, actually. And so.
Right. Okay. So I'd move 6 and charge WSSC with exactly as Councilmember Reamer is saying, come back to us with specific expenditure reductions rather than unspecified ones. Answer the question about delinquent accounts in other jurisdictions, answer the question about federal and state aid. And we have time to have the dialogue with our intergovernmental relations office and our state delegation and the governor's staff, so we can make sure that they're getting all the fundings that they deserve.
I support that, and I think the way that Councilmember Reamer framed it, I associate myself with that. That if 7% is what is necessary to maintain the system, right, and make sure that everybody's drinking water is healthy, safe, clean, but wanting to make sure that we do our due diligence and provide the oversight necessary to see if that's the last resort. So, Mr. Chair, I would move what you just recommended.
Great. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, just raise your hand, I guess. That's 3. Okay. Keith, I think we're good. Can you write that up?
Next steps, I will reach out to my Prince George's counterparts, and we'll see if we can, if we're coming to agreement. If we are, we may schedule council review for this Tuesday, or perhaps the following Tuesday. Just, but we'll keep the committee posted on the Prince George's Council's actions going forward.
Great.
Can I ask for a clarification on what time frame? Typically, we will transmit our preliminary proposed budget to the counties in the middle of January. So that's when, we would, between now and then, that's when we're going to be working on how would we live within a 6% increase. What would that mean, or could we? So is that the time frame you're thinking about, seeing what a 6% budget would look like, or within the time frame of your deliberations on the spending control limits?
I think we're going to pass the spending limit at 6 and ask you to come back and justify why you might need more in time to build that into the budget. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the answer. Right.
And I think that the public hearing draft is what Mr. Beach was talking about. You also have obviously the final transmittal by March 1st.
Right.
But yeah, if we'll have to see where the two councils are, but I don't know how soon WSSC Water would have that information. They'd have to have their public hearing draft basically done before they would know what's in and what's out. So it may, I don't know if it would be much sooner than that January 15th period of time. But we'll work with WSSC Water.
That's what we'll work with. We can certainly get the question of federal and state aid. And we should have representatives from the right partners here for the next discussion, but we can certainly get that answered long before January.
Yeah, hopefully with some of your follow-up questions, yes.
Right. And the question about delinquent accounts. Okay. Thank you all so much. We appreciate everything you're doing. We're glad our water is safe, and keep up the good work. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks.